Okay, so this video will be a bit counterintuitive as I will be essentially downgrading my own modular AIO water cooler in order to fit it into a smaller PC. Doing this now because I finally went off the deep end and got the D5 pump plus a Velocity Square water block from my main 5950X, which is arguably unnecessary. So before I show you what you should not do in a future video, let's start with something sensible. But first, let's take a second or two and just marvel at the amount of dust that was gathered on this in less than 4 months. There are better tools for this, but I stuck some heavy duty tape over my regular pliers and used them to loosen the fittings and drain the loop into the waste pan. We're thoroughly cleaning this radiator off camera with salt and vinegar because it is a copper radiator. I have a video on that if you are interested, I just won't repeat it here. We should mention here that I pre-loosened the screws while the camera was rolling, so it really doesn't matter the order of extraction now. I do like to both tighten and loosen them in an X pattern to make sure the gaskets and the like don't get pinched. There's a bit of corrosion built up on the cold plate, but it's not bad and it's nowhere near enough to compromise its cooling ability. Now, while it's okay to use alcohol and even mild acids to bring tarnished copper back to life, do not use them on plastics and definitely not on rubber. It might swell up or lose elasticity, leading to leaks over time. Space in the case that this is going in wasn't a constraint. I would have gone with this bar 240mm aluminium radiator. Sure, it's not as good as a copper one and the loop will be mixed metal, but then again the vast majority of AIOs on the market are like that. The fluid I am using has good corrosion inhibiting properties that last about a year to 18 months, but at least this one makes it easy to service as it is modular. It end up going for a 120mm copper radiator though, which means that the time between services will be essentially double to 3-ish years. Apart from the case constraints, that also played a part in my decision. Usually start by filling up the radiator because it is much easier to do it like this instead of through the cold plate opening or the fill port. Obviously, if you have a reservoir, don't do this because it's useless. But once the radiator is full to the brim, it's time to install the lines using these compression fittings. I elected to do it here and it came to bite me in the bum later on, but it's a good idea to cut 3 or 4 millimeters off the end of the tube as that bit gets stretched from previous compressions. After thoroughly rinsing the pump head, there are still a few stragglers around and it's a good idea to wipe it down before starting to fill. Little tiny specks of corrosion won't affect anything right now, but as they start to build up naturally over the next 1 to 2 years, you will notice a drop in performance. So it's always a good idea to start clean. So sorry for the back camera angle, I was too concentrated on what I was doing and didn't notice. Filling and jiggling the radiator until no more bubbles come up. It's doubtful that it's properly filled, but it doesn't matter that much because the pump head also has a fill port on the side that can be topped up as required. Just trust me, it's so much easier to fill the loop this way than through the little fill port. That blade needs to go back in correctly, otherwise it will block instead of direct the flow. Make sure all gaskets are back in position and then just add the cold plate. As I mentioned before, work your way in an X pattern, tightening it bit by bit instead of going full whack on a corner and damaging things. Thankfully, unlike sealed AIOs, these screws are meant to come in and out and it's doubtful you'll strip them unless using the wrong screwdriver, but still be careful. And that's it, the loop is done. This is the fill port you need to use if there is too much air in the system and you can hear bubbling, but apart from that you're essentially done. Hold on there, don't just stick it back in your computer. I hope it goes without saying that before this needs to be tested. If you have one of those handy dandy fill port pump pressurizers to use on the loop, then do that, but if not, you just connect it to a PSU by itself, turn it on and leave it running overnight on some paper towels. That will definitely suss out any leaks. In my case, because I did not trim the ends of the tubes at the radiator and I did see a minor leak and I had to do extra work to fix it, but afterwards it was perfect. And that's about it. I hope you enjoyed this video and see you in the next one.